Maybe Papa Pepper will come back. I had to restart the whole computer to get the thing to go. It's what I get for shopping at Walmart. Should have never bought a HP from Walmart. Should have went ahead and went somewhere and had one built custom. Got exactly what I wanted and spent the extra $100. Or maybe somebody will show up. I'm sure somebody will. I enjoyed the conversation. A few minutes ago, before I found out I had audio problems, the audio will probably start working on playback and everybody will hear the rant. It's like, no, I don't want to talk to that guy. He's in a bad mood. Really, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm just irritated with bureaucracy in the world. But I've got a lot of stuff in the garden to do tomorrow after I run a few errands in the morning. And I won't have time to think about it, so it'll all be out of my mind and I won't have to worry. So I'll just have to unleash the birds for a day and let them free roam, free range one more time. And I think I'm going to completely redo the entire chicken run, pull up all the T-posts and all the fence I've got, and just rearrange the whole thing, restretch all the fence because whenever I let my goats out to be nice and free range, Billy Two Udders takes advantage of that chain link fence that I have, and she just rubs all over it, and she's got it all bowed out and stretched from hell to creation. She loves rubbing on that thing, and I can't get her to stop for nothing. I found her on top of the roof of my car, not the hood, the roof of my car yesterday when I was going to work. It's like, come on, really? You can't find something else to climb on top of besides my car? I'm going to have hoof prints dented in the top of my car before it's over with. But hopefully, she'll throw me a couple kids in April or May. And if they're anything like her, they'll have personality and they'll be some good babies. Good deal. Thanks for coming back, Papa Pepper. How you been? I haven't seen your video on the trellis that you built yet. Yeah, I'm hoping for two. And I've got another one. They're Nubians, and I bred them with Kiko to try and get some of the parasite resistance of the Kiko into the line. And I traded a baby goat and rebred that mother and this one in exchange for breeding fees. And the guy said if I wind up with two of them that didn't take, he'd just buy the goat from me. So, but I think I came out on top. I think both of them took. So I'm happy with it. As long as I get a couple goats out of the deal, I'm cool. But I saw your video on the goat fencing. Man, there are so many things you can do with those cattle panels or hog panels, however you guys out where you are, Sam. We call them cattle panels because we don't have many people around here that grow pigs, so they're cattle panels to us. All right, I'll probably be here for a while because I'm avoiding doing schoolwork because it's not due for a couple more days for college, and I'm taking the night off because I took most of yesterday off for the rain. So I'll be here for a while, trying to get a little bit of watch time up. So come on back whenever you get a chance. Oh yeah, they're so versatile. I mean, you can make trellises, fences, anything. But yeah, I'll be here. Just come on back whenever you get a chance. Hopefully, a few more. Got a couple regulars that are probably come in a little while. Yeah, I'll probably rant about the government and bureaucracy while no one's watching. That way, they can catch it on the playback. Alexandria Occasional Cortex, as I call her, now says we have a moral decision not to have children because life will be so hard for them. Life was hard for me. Life was hard for my parents and their parents. Life is hard for everybody. Lady, get over it. Stop thinking about just yourself. God, I can't stand her. But anyway, we'll talk to you when you get back. Talking to Papa Pepper when he comes back, I'm like, gotta remember to ask him about steaming because I'm thinking about trying that out. I hear that blockchain stuff might be the money of the future, and I wouldn't mind getting in on that on somewhat of the ground floor, and it might be worth my while. A few bitcoins in my pocket after exchanging them until I get to the Bitcoin area. One day Bitcoin might be worth something, but I got a feeling in the meantime it's probably going to go down a little bit and then it'll go back up. But Bitcoin might be the new gold. And I think, if I remember what Papa Pepper said, they use steam power and it's steam, steam something other is their currency. I have to check that out. Hopefully, I don't have to procrastinate too long. Hey, Jim. I'm being lazy again. I've got schoolwork that I should be working on, but I don't have class tomorrow. Just a couple errands to run in the morning, then start work on the chicken run. Because I went out there today and I looked at it and I thought about it and I said, my design that I've gotten in my head, I'm thinking inside the box too much. So I figured if I shifted the fence down a little bit in one direction, I could go back a little bit further in another direction. And instead of having two separate chicken runs, one on each side, and then have to go through a gate to get in and then go through a door to get into the chicken coop to get the eggs, I just moved the fence down to where I can go into the chicken coop through the door and not have to worry about going through a fence, because if I go in there, they're woof, all over me. I mean, it's unreal the way they flock to me. Even if they've got food, they just flock right to my feet. And I don't know why. I mean, I've stepped on a couple of them accidentally. They get kicked when I walk because I can't help it. They're right there, just boom, there went a chicken. But I'll be working on that tomorrow. And I'm going to try and get everything laid out so that once I start, I can get it done as quick as possible, because my English peas are starting to come up pretty good. And I've only got a handful left that I can replant with. And I don't want to buy any more this year. So I've got to make it as quick as possible. So I got to get it all laid out once I get my errands run in the morning. That way I can just snatch those T-posts up, take me a couple Tylenol, go pound them back in the ground where they go, and then just stretch all the fence all at once. Be done with it. If I actually get started on it and don't stop, I could probably have it done in about 2 or 3 hours. So I'll probably wait till about 2 to actually start taking the fence down where they get out and run. But until I've got 4 extra T-posts that I'm not using right now, and I could probably steal 1 or 2 for my existing electric fence, and I need to work on that anyway and retighten it, because electric fence just loses up over time, because I'm not using the high tensile wire where I could actually pull it with a stretcher. That's my problem too. Once I get started, I usually don't stop until I'm done. It's getting the motivation to get started. But you probably can't see in the comments, but I actually had Papa Pepper stop by. He chatted for a few minutes, said he'd be back later on. I hope so, because I'm beginning to get to where I like his videos. He's just a down to earth good guy, I think. And I appreciate the videos he's got, because he tries those new things, and that's what we discussed last night about seed catalogs. That's where I get the stuff that I can't find at my seed store that I want to try. And I might see if he still got some of those snake gourds and enter his snake gourd challenge, if he could send me, 4 or 5 seeds to just get started. Because I've had pretty good luck in the past growing gourds, which where I live, gourds, they're a nuisance. My brother-in-law he gave me 3 birdhouse gourds. Hang on, I got one over here. The birdhouse gourds. He gave me 3 of them this year. He planted them one year, and for the last 5 years or so, they've come up on their own, and he'll just let them grow, and he picks them all off every fall and gives them away. He doesn't replant. It's just the seeds have been there so long that Some of them germinate this year, some of them germinate next year, there'll be a few the year after. But I lost one to rot. You probably saw a little bit of mold on that one, but that's no big deal. But I might grow a few of those, and I'll grow those somewhere where the goats can get to part of them. Because the last time I grew gourds, I had one plant, and you've seen the size of my chicken run in the videos. That one plant, I didn't know what it was that came up in the center of that chicken pen. And I didn't have any gourds, didn't have any seed for gourds. Don't know where it came from, but it was a gourd and it came up. So I put a wire cage around it so that the chickens wouldn't eat it all. And it grew fast enough to where there was just a stalk when they ate the lower leaves off of it. And then it started growing up the fence. It covered the entire perimeter of the fence. It covered the entire fence I had over the top. It started growing onto the top of the house that I was living in. One plant. I bet you if you would have taken the vines off that one plant and stretched them from the end to end, it would have probably been 300 yards worth of vine off of one plant. And it was loaded with gourds. And they were the bell-shaped gourd. No, those were dipper gourds. Now, I have no idea where it came from, how it got there. I just had a dipper gourd come up on its own. So whenever I take these two and drill holes in them for bluebird houses, I'll take the seeds out and I'll keep a few for myself. I'll probably give a few away, and the rest of them, I'll probably just scatter them up and down the highway just to see what happens, because they don't mow grass often enough on the highways around here. It'll be fun to watch, seeing gourds grow everywhere. Or maybe I'll section off part of my pasture out there and let them grow out by the pond, and then turn pig loose and let her have a field day on them. If she's still around by then, I might get hungry for barbecue before then. And if this fella doesn't come through with a Hampshire boar to breed her with, I can't afford to keep her around. It's $30 a month to feed her. Although last night when I got off work, I did have about 20 pounds of stuff from the restaurant that I work at that they cook too much, thinking they're going to get a rush of people in there. Next thing you know, they've got 10 or 15 hamburger patties that they got to throw away because they're all dried up. So they throw them away, and I took them a bucket and we put a garbage bag in it, and they count the waste and they throw all the food scraps in there, and all I got to do is go through and pick out the plastic gloves. And once I pick out the plastic gloves from that food waste, I carry it out to the dumpster like regular trash. And then whenever I get off my shift, I go out there and I pick the bag up, I bring it home, I feed it to the hog. So it was like 10:30 when I got home last night, right before I got on the live stream, and I went out there and opened the gate, and there was some lettuce and tomatoes in there, and the goats got that while she was going to town on chicken strips and hamburger patties. And there had to be 30 pounds of wasted food in there. And she went to town. There was even some bacon, so she had a relative for dinner. Oh, I see I got 2 viewers. Who we got in here? Let's see if tonight it will actually tell me participants. Last night it wouldn't, and earlier tonight I had to restart my computer. It's just got you, Jim, but it says 2. But the audio wasn't coming in, and I had to restart my computer. I restarted the live stream. That didn't work, so I hit restart on the computer. Then my computer didn't restart. It went to a complete black screen, so then I just had to push the on-off button and get it Oh, Papa Pepper's back. Yeah, we were just talking about gourds and about how the restaurant that I work part time at while I'm going back to school, because I managed fast food restaurants for over 25 years, and I'm just doing part time work, so I'm not a manager now, and I don't have the headache that goes with it for the pay, which the pay wasn't much better anyway. But I brought home a bunch of food waste to give it to my hog. But we were talking about gourds, and one year I don't know where this gourd came from. It was a dipper gourd. I was living in a different place, and it came up in the center of my chicken pen. So I wanted to know what this thing was, because I mean I had thrown a pumpkin out there and let the chickens have it, and I thought, maybe it's a pumpkin. So I put a wire cage around it, and it grew up through it. And then it grew up the fence, and then it completely engulfed the perimeter fence, and then it completely engulfed the top fence to keep the hawks and stuff out. And then it started growing on top of my house. And if you'd have stretched all these vines out, Papa Pepper, I guarantee you the vines on that one plant would have easily been 300 yards. Oh yeah, I like gourds on. As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law has given me a couple of these birdhouse gourds, and I'm gonna plant a few of those this year and try to make me some bluebird houses, and then I'll plant a few, and I'll try and do some houses like you've seen them strung over ponds for purple martins. Purple martins are worth their weight in gold. They eat mosquitoes like bats. Oh man, dipper gourds work great for everything. I remember when I was a kid, my great uncle had a well in this front yard, and you actually had to let the bucket go down and pull it up with the rope and the pulley. And they had a dipper gourd, and that's what you drank the water out of the dipper gourd. And every year they'd replace the gourd because after a while they go bad with all the moisture. But I remember drinking out of dipper gourds when I was a kid. But it was pretty neat. And to this day, I have no idea how that dipper gourd sprouted up in that chicken pen, because chickens I had been there for 2 years. So any seed out there that sprouted, they'd already eaten, and that one just popped up. And within a matter of about 3 months, the vines were everywhere. Had no idea what it was, and then all of a sudden, like in a matter of a week, about 35, 40 gourds just showed up, and they were all an inch or two long one day, and by the end of the week, they were a foot long. It's like, good Lord, how fast did these things grow? I thought about contacting you about the snake gourd challenge. I've never grown snake gourds, and I think that would be interesting. But if I grow these gourds, I wouldn't want to have another gourd. I'm only on 2 acres, so I really don't want to have anything too close to cross contaminate. That's why I've got Cherokee pumpkin or Cherokee tan pumpkin seed. I wouldn't mind having some, and I might actually grow part of them. And oh yeah, I grow winter squash. I love butternut squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash. If it's a squash, you name it, I grow it. About the only one I grow zucchini, but that is probably my least favorite. But zucchini, I usually wind up putting in stuff like spaghetti sauce and things like that, because it's kind of like a meat substitute. I like spaghetti sauce with eggplant in it. No, I've never grown Tahitian, but I grow a variety of squash. and I just take out some extra cattle fence that I have, and I put a T-post up on one end and one on the other, and I stretch it out, and I let them go. Yep, it does stretch the sauce, and eggplant's my favorite to put in sauce because it does flavor other than flavor you give it, and I like eggplant any way you cook it. Just peel that sucker, deep fry it with a little bit of batter on it, like onion rings, salt and pepper. I'm in heaven. I love it. I can make a meal off of just fried eggplant. But my goal in the next 5 to 10 years, after I get my master's degree in history, I want to do it in historical agriculture. But I'm about to start going around to a lot of the retirement homes and nursing homes. I'm gonna start interviewing some of these older guys from World War II and Korea. I want to do oral histories on their military service and the way they grew up and how they fed their families and the way they grew their gardens and stuff. Because I love military history, and I'd love agricultural history. If you've ever looked at my playlist, I've got some that are agricultural history that the government put out these films back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s to help educate farmers on the new ways before the extension agency really got off and running, helping farmers out. And I want to get some of these guys their oral histories down, and that way I've had a couple World War II vets that told me stories, and they're like, please don't tell anybody because I could get in a lot of trouble if somebody ever found out about it, and they're still scared because things were top secret. One guy even killed a Russian, basically sawed him in half with a Thompson submachine gun in 1947 over in Germany whenever he was in the American occupation zone and the Russian was taking pot shots at Americans and Germans across the borderline. So he snuck across the border and he basically just took care of the problem. And I'll guarantee these guys that anything they say will be kept confidential, and only after they pass will I donate a copy of their oral history to the State Historical Society. That way it can be kept and preserved. Yeah, you're right. Real knowledge, first-hand knowledge. And we're losing World War II vets at an alarming rate. I remember whenever I got my degree in history, I graduated in December of '04. And at that time, there was one veteran from World War One left, and he just passed away then. So it's only a matter of another 10 years before we don't have any of these guys. And the same thing with Korea. I mean, I've got to get on the ball and start doing this. So that's on my to-do list, and that'll probably be where I get my master's thesis from. And having all these interviews that'll give me primary source information that I don't have to go look up in archives and all that. And I'll be able to write something really good, possibly even have a really good book on my hands. Okay, Papa Pepper. Well, I hope those issues aren't serious, and I hope they work out well for you. So, I'm going to try and make this a regular thing and do something at least a couple nights a week. So anytime you see me live, you are more than welcome to stop by. And I love watching your videos. You do some amazing things with what you've got over there, and you do it with a practical mindset. You think it through first. You've got the right idea. Work smart, not hard. But Hope it all works out well for you. And thanks for stopping in. Really means a lot to have you stop by because I enjoy talking to people who actually have a brain and know what they're looking at whenever they see a plant, know how to grow it. And especially somebody that's not afraid to try something new. And yeah, Jim, you're right. Those are some great videos. Papa Pepper's got some good ones. I watch a few of these timelines. Got a good YouTube channel. I watch some of their stuff. They've got a lot of oral history interviews and Major Winners from Band of Brothers. I've got his interview saved where they interviewed him, and he was such a humble man, and I respect and admire the hell out of him, and it was such a great loss. But um, Maurice Saint Hilaire, I think it's either that town that was, or maybe that was the one they landed in by mistake, not the one they were supposed to be dropped into. But one of those little French towns, they put up a monument as a memorial to the Normandy invasion, and they used his likeness for the face of the statue. And his one condition was you can use my likeness for the statue, but you cannot use my name. It is for all the soldiers who served, all those who survived, all those who didn't. It's for all of them because they all were responsible for winning the war, not just me because they wrote a book about me and made a miniseries and it became famous. And I thought that was very humble and just an amazing man to hear his stories. And amazingly enough, the statue really does look like him. And the guy that they got to play him in the miniseries really did look like him. And he was the one that narrated the documentary about the statue. It was creepy but cool. And I love those things. I mean, I love military history and agricultural history. I need to get my dad to sit down, but my dad will be all, "You're just wasting your time interviewing me, la di da di da." But yet, it's so interesting to hear him tell about when he was a kid having to go up on the roof of their house that was made out of tin twice a day and flip the beef over after they butchered a cow because they basically made jerky out of it. They sun dried it, and every morning he'd have to go up there on the roof because he was the smallest one and lay all the cuts out. And then at noon he'd have to go flip them over, and then in the evening he'd have to go gather them up so the flies wouldn't get on them at night, bugs wouldn't get in them. And then the next morning start it all over. He said it'd take about 3 weeks, and that was how they had their beef. It was dehydrated. They'd have to boil it before they could do anything with it. And I had mentioned something about I was tired of eating something that I'd eaten my fair share of that, and I didn't care if I had any more of that for the rest of my life. And he says, "Son, if you grew up like I did, where the only thing you had was one thing that was left to eat, and you ate it every day for 3 months, you'd give that attitude up. Because that's how it was when I was growing up. You ate what you had. And if you didn't have it, you went out and you found it in the woods and you killed it and you were grateful that it was there because when he was growing up, there were no deer in Georgia by 1940. The deer we have here now were actually brought in, and I didn't see my first deer until 1984. They were rare, and the limit were $2 and one doe. Now the limit is $2 and 9 doe, and they're fixing to up it to 11 does. That's how the population is just boomed. But he said there weren't any deer. He said you didn't find rabbits very much. People ate everything that moved. Ponds wouldn't even have fish in them. They'd fish them clean. They'd get out there with seine nets and walk through it because they were hungry, and it was in between seasons and the garden wasn't producing. So they just walked through there with a seine net, catch every fish, and they ate fish for 2 days. Gave fish to their neighbors, and then the neighbors had a hog that they killed. Well, then they'd share the meat. And that's how people survived. He said it was hard. I can believe him, especially being in the rural South where there wasn't much money to begin with, and then whatever was here was lost in the depression. Yeah, times were tough for those guys. But he said he remembered toting fertilizer bags. They were burlap sacks, ground up dried fish meal. That was their fertilizer back then. And he said he didn't know if it wasn't better than the stuff they use today. And I think I agree with him on that because I've done experiments with tomato plants using 5, 10, 15, 10, 10, 10, another blend that I don't remember, and one had a fish up under it. I put a bluegill about the size of my hand up under that one. That one grew better than the ones that had the commercial fertilizer. And it put on more tomatoes, bigger tomatoes, no problem with blossom end rot, nothing. The bones had all the calcium that the plant needed. None of that. All I had to do was keep the leaves trimmed off the bottom where they didn't have water splash on them from the rain. Less disease in that one than compared with the other ones. So that's probably what I'm going to do with my tomatoes this year. Whenever I set them out, I'll just make a trip down to the pond a couple days beforehand, and I'll catch me a mess of fish. However many plants I got, I'll catch a fish for each one, or maybe 2 fish for each one, and I'll put them in the hole in the bottom, and then I'll plant my tomato on top of it. Might even do that with my squash and cucumbers. And if it's a really good fishing day, who knows? When it comes time to plant peas and corn and stuff like that, I might line the whole row with a fish at the bottom and just plant on top of that. And the lady that owns the other part of the pond, she put grass carp in there. It used to be covered in duckweed, and I was kind of looking forward to duckweed because you get you one of them little pool skimmers and skim duckweed out of a pond and throw it up on a tarp or something and let it dry out and die, and then put that out there in your garden. That's some good fertilizer too. Duckweed will make a plant grow. I tried it out on a house plant that I had, old Boston fern. That Boston fern grew like crazy off duckweed. That's what they need to start doing with them Asian carp over there in the Mississippi. Get them some boats with some outriggers and nets that hang off the side that don't even touch the water, and just run through there, and all them fish that jump, angled in nets to where they funnel down, and the fish just drain into a big old tub, grind them up into fertilizer. It wouldn't take but a couple of years, they'd reduce that population down to a manageable size if they kept doing it. Wouldn't be wouldn't be near as many funny videos on YouTube. It's kind of funny seeing somebody get hit in the head with a carp whenever they're trying to water ski. Somewhere along the line, we're all related. It just depends on how far back you go, because I guarantee you, somewhere along the line, we've got an ancestor in common within the last 200, 300 years. But I look at things the way you do from a practical point of view. I try not to waste anything. I mean, whatever leftovers I have, something else eats them. And then whatever eats them, they poop. It goes back into the garden. It comes out the garden. I eat it. I got leftovers. It goes back into the garden. The only thing that don't go in the garden is what goes straight into the septic tank, because the only thing that goes in the septic tank is the toilet. Every other bit of water I got, sink drains, shower drains, dishwasher, washer and dryer, that all does not go in the septic tank. That goes to trees. There's 2 lines for each of my pecan trees where they get water from that. And it actually does them pretty good, you know. Other than having to fight squirrels for the pecans, I get a good crop of pecans every year because of that gray water. That gray water, it's got nutrients in it. They suck it up. Nice, healthy pecan trees. You just don't bring them much at market because they're seedlings. Now, if they'd have been a name brand like a Stewart or something like that, yeah, I'd probably get almost $2 a pound for them. But I get about 97 cents a pound for what I pick up here because they're seedlings. But to tell you the truth, the seedlings are better because they've got more oil in them and a better flavor. So as far as cooking goes and eating goes, seedling beats those name brands all day long. They just like those name brands because they make a big fat meat and it's got a good color to it, but doesn't have near the oil or the taste. Personally, I don't care for pecans. I very seldom eat them. I'll eat walnuts and I'll eat almonds and stuff like that. I just don't care for pecans. They taste like cardboard to me. I might eat one slice of pecan pie a year, and that's just because of everything in it besides the pecans. All you got to do is plant you a couple pecans about 2, 3 inches down in a pot and wait about 15 years, and you'll have all the pecans you need. That's the drawback with pecans. It takes about 15 years for them to start to bear. And they make awesome shade trees. So, and I've got a couple that have voluntarily come up. I think I'm going to pot them. And my dad's got a few of the. He's got about 40 pecan trees. Most of them are the name brand, but he's got a few of the paper shell, the long ones that are real thin shelled and easy to crack. I think I'm going to graft a few of those on some of these rootstocks. I believe the name of those that he has are Mayhem and Pawnee. Hazelnut. I hadn't thought about hazelnuts, but that's a good idea, and I do like hazelnuts. And almonds. Almonds are pretty quick producers too. Within about 5 years, you'll be getting almonds. And the trees don't grow very tall, so I mean, you keep those a manageable size where whenever it's time to harvest them, you can go out there basically and just bump them with a riding lawnmower and they'll all fall off and you can just go ahead and pick them up. When I was younger, my dad used to make me shimmy up the pecan tree and get on each branch and jump up and down until the nuts fell off so that way we could get it done a whole lot faster because we got a better price by selling the pecans before Thanksgiving than after Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, the price of pecans went down because by then, you know, everybody had already made their pecan pies, which I don't know why the price went down because they were really buying last year's pecans, not this year's pecans. But the price would go down, and so he would send me up the tree to shake the limbs and knock all of my kid down so we could get them up and get them sold as fast as possible. And he paid me in shotgun shells. Every once in a while, he do a split with me. Every 5 buckets, I got 1 bucket for my own for cash, but normally he paid me in shotgun shells. And he taught me how to shoot real quick because he bought me my first 20 gauge and a box of shells. And he said, every time you kill something that blue jay, squirrel, rabbit, whatever eats the garden, a crow, any of those that you kill, I'll replace the shell. When it got down to the point that I only had 24 shells, because he took that one out the box that I missed on, I learned real quick how to shoot. Last year, whenever I was staying at my mom and dad's before I moved over here, I took to shooting squirrels. I stopped counting after 140. It got me, and I was using the 22. It got to the point that I wouldn't even pull the trigger unless this thing was at least 50 yards away. And I didn't use a scope. I was using iron sights. And I was going for a headshot. And it got to the point that if they weren't at least 50 yards away, I didn't even bother shooting at them. It wasn't any fun. And I got to where I was able to hit 2 out of 3 of them every time. 50-yard headshot on a squirrel. That's pretty good. Well, somebody else has joined us. I wonder who it could be. Let's see if participants will tell me who it is. Oh, YouTube is always so slow on getting information up there. They're always 2 days behind on the analytics and stuff like that. I just don't get it. I blame it on the Democrats. Whoever's with us, you're welcome to join the conversation because we're just talking about anything. You bring up whatever topic you want to talk about, and we'll be glad to join in and we'll talk about it. We've been talking about gardening, we've been talking about growing trees, and we've been talking about history. So just chime in anytime you're ready. Yeah, he could be back. He said he had a few things to do, so you never know. But Papa usually he speaks up. Yeah, I do sweet potatoes. I put a couple in a pot yesterday for slips. I'm probably a week behind my dad. He's probably already got his in the ground for slips, and he probably throws out 200 pounds a year in sweet potatoes because if they don't look perfect, he don't keep them. One year I went through there and I picked up all the ones that had the cracks and they just were a little smaller than what he wanted, maybe deformed a little bit. I carried them down to the food bank and I gave them to them and they were like, "Oh wow, we haven't had these in forever." I don't think many of them made it into the food bank participants' hands because those folks were just excited to see sweet potatoes, and I think a lot of them took them home. And this year, I'm going to try sweet potato vines in a stir fry. I've seen that a lot in videos. I can only imagine that it's got to be pretty good because if the sweet potato itself is good and sweet, I imagine the vines in a stir fry with the leaves, that's probably going to give a good sweet flavor to whatever you're cooking. I don't know if I want to try the purple ones. I've had them once before, and they were a lot starchier than the regular sweet potato. And I haven't tried the white ones, but I've heard those are a little starchy too. But I, I think my dad, I've got his sweet potatoes, what I'm using for slip, and I think he grows Georgia Jets. If it's not Georgia Jets, he grows Beauregards. But I'm pretty sure his are Georgia Jets. If they look like them and they've got the color like them, and they're sweet like the Georgia Jet. Georgia Jet's a little bit sweeter than the Beauregard. But I'll be growing a row of those this year. It won't take many for me. And then whatever I don't use, and one or two sweet potatoes a week for me is enough. So if I get, 100 potatoes that I keep, the rest of them I'm just going to give away. Somebody that needs them. I'll probably take them to the church down the road or one of the other churches that I go to, my Baptist church that I like to go to, instead of these crazy people down here at this church. They don't seem to get the fact that the only reason why I'm there is because it's a historical building. It's built in 1901, and I'm just interested in not seeing the place fall down. I don't really prescribe to their way of teaching. That it's not my style, but I put up with it and I help them out with advice. I set up their board of trustees for them, and I give them their financial and their legal advice on what to do and how to get out of the organization they're in and go non-denominational. But I'm a Baptist by nature, so more than likely I'll take my sweet potatoes to the Baptist church and let them. They do a food pantry and let them distribute them, along with any vegetables that I don't sell at the farmers market. I'll take those up there and I'll let them distribute them, because these people down here at this church, out of the family, there's four in the family: a mother, a daughter, and a son-in-law. And um, find somewhere where they're doing construction with drywall. Drywall is made out of gypsum, and that'll help loosen up your clay soil. And all you got to do is just throw that on top of the ground, get it good and soaking wet, run your tiller over it, and you've got gypsum in your soil for free. Because there's always pieces of drywall left over at a construction site, and they don't care if you go pick it up. I get a lot of scrap lumber and stuff like that. Yeah, these people down the road, they're pretty Pentecostal, and my big thing is whenever you ask me to pray, don't try to pray louder than me. Keep your mouth shut. Pray to yourself. Whenever I'm through, if you want to say a prayer, say a prayer. If you ask somebody to speak, don't speak over them while they're speaking. Oh, then you ought to have easy access to free gypsum. Just throw it out, and it also helps with the pH of your soil too. It's not um quite like lime, but it'll help with raise the pH up where it won't be so acidic. Or if you get too much, you might have to add some sulfur to lower the pH. But you do what you got to do. You get your soil to where you need it to be so to grow right. But these people down the road, three out of the four of them get disabilities, and two of them is because of physical and mental disability, and the third one is for health reasons, and the fourth one is working on it for health reasons, and I can understand it. I mean, they need it, worse than I do. And I've broken my back, and I really can't do a whole lot of physical labor. So, but even I'm not on disability, but they've got between those three checks coming in, they're close to 40,000 more, and they live in a camper behind the church, and the church pays the power bill that they use, and they do a lot of things that I don't particularly agree with, but I just keep my mouth shut because they're doing their best. I mean, they're they're not stupid people; they're uneducated people, but they try. So I don't mind helping them out. They try, and I give them credit for that, and I give them a lot of leeway, even though they're down here at my house almost every day, asking questions or wanting me to do this with them or help them do that, and it's like, I can't right now. I got this to do, but a lot of times I go down there and I help them. I mean, last summer I let them borrow my riding lawnmower whenever they needed to mow the church grounds, so they didn't have to push mow it or hire somebody to do it. So if you can't give money, you can give time and you can help out. That's the way I see it. As far as tithes and offering go, and I'm not able to do a lot with money, but I've got time and I've got equipment, and no reason for me not to help out whenever I can. So that's what I do. Their next big project is rewiring the church, because most of the there's some of the wires up in the attic that are still the cloth coated kind. So, and we've bought most of the wires. So the wires there is just now a matter of getting the help there to actually do it, because I'm not able to get up in that cramped crawl space of the attic and stay all day and do it. And one of the guys, he knows everything that's on the board of trustees with me, and is, oh, we got to do it this way. And I'm trying to tell him, look, dude, I don't care what kind of work you say you've done. I'm telling you, this is the way it's wired up. It's not wired up the way it is a modern house is wired up. We've got to change it all to be modern, because you're looking at this old stuff and trying to wire it modern, and it's not going to work. And he's tried it 2 or 3 times in different variations, and every time the breaker's been thrown. And I just look at him and say, okay, whenever you get ready for me to go up there and show you one time how to do it, you can finish the rest by yourself, because I'm not crawling up there and hurting myself where I can't walk for a day and a half, 2 days, because I'm sore from being cramped and bent over all day with a bad back. Not doing it. But I'll go up there and I'll show you how to do it. And I'll show you the easy way to run the wire down the wall and get it to the socket without having to tear the wall apart to get to it. He's even going in there and cut a great big hole out in the wall so he could pull the wire down. And I tried to tell him all he had to do was up in the attic, snip the wire off, take some electrical tape, tape the two ends together, go down to the outlet, and just pull it through the box until the new wire came out. But no, he had to do it his way, because his way was easier. Yeah, it was easier to get it in, but look at the damage you created that's got to be repaired. Now we got to buy more materials to fix the hole you put in the wall. A 3 foot by 2 foot wide hole that you didn't have to cut in the wall. He didn't even cut it. He beat it out with a hammer. Why are you creating extra work? And then wants to tell the pastor that she needs to use her own personal money to go visit the sick and the elderly that are members of the church, that call and ask for her to come visit because they want to counsel with her and you know and be reassured they want their pastor there. And it's like, no, that ain't the way it works. I'm head trustee, her husband's a trustee, and you're a trustee, and you're telling her she's got to take her own money and she's not even getting a salary for the job she's doing as pastor of this church. No, it don't work that way. They're taking that gas money they need for any trip that is church related out of the funds of the church. I agree to it. Her husband agrees to it. That's two against one. I'm sorry, dude, you're wrong. And then tell them they don't need to be feeding everybody that comes around. That's what a church is for, to help those who are in need. Just because you're not there to fill your plate up like you fill your plate up every time we have a Sunday dinner and you're there. I see your plate, how full it is, and you want to talk about they need to be responsible and not feed everybody. Look how much you eat. But that's about enough about religion because I'll get worked up. That guy just irritates me to death because he knows more than everybody else. And he's a blithering idiot, I'll be honest with you. Half of the stuff that comes out his mouth, I don't even believe. But I've got about 3 or 4 weeks to go before it's time to plant peas and corn and beans and squash. Can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. That reminds me, I got a bag of lime sitting on my front porch that I need to try and spread that tomorrow too. Go ahead and get it out there. That way, the next pass with the tiller over it, I have it tilled in, and it'll be ready and waiting. So, how much longer do you have before you can start planting outside? When do you get to plant outside? Around the middle of April? Yeah, you're about a month behind me. I can do my cabbage at the end of January. And I could probably still get away with it now, but broccoli and stuff like that, I would have to really put some fertilizer to it and get that grown fast or it'll bolt. Because my turnips and my collards are already starting to bolt, the ones that I had from last fall, which they're still growing great, but they're starting to bolt. So it's not going to do me any good to plant any more of those. I might get one good picking off of them. So, but I did get some carrots in the ground, so I should have a crop of those and radishes, and I got some beets in the ground in time. So hopefully I'll get enough so I can pickle some beets. I love pickled beets. And I think I might actually try looking up a Russian recipe for borscht because I found out that's just beet soup, and hey, that sounds pretty good to me. I like beets, so why not try it? Yeah, I think I planted roughly a 30-foot row of beets, and that'll be enough for me to put up several pints. and eat a few fresh, which I think I'll eating them fresh this year. I think I'll probably roast them, see how that turns out. Might try a few different ways, maybe some with some savory seasonings and maybe some for dessert types dish. I don't know. Just depends on how the mood strikes me whenever I pull a few up that day. Carrots, I'm looking forward to having enough of those to make a homemade carrot cake because I love carrot cake, and that was my whole reason for planting carrots this year because I normally don't plant them. I eat a beet any way you put it. It doesn't matter. I'll eat them raw. It doesn't matter to me. Beets I love. And I usually don't plant carrots, but I wanted a homemade carrot cake, so I planted some. And other than that, I just put carrots and stuff like roast because I don't eat carrots by themselves. And, they're just not my thing, but I do like them. And I'll shred some up in salad or coleslaw. But other than that, I don't eat much carrots. So I didn't plant a whole lot of them. But radishes now, I will eat those. I like radishes roasted, and I like them pickled. So I'll probably be doing if the chickens didn't scatter them out or mess them up totally, whatever I have come up with radishes, I'll probably do more pickling on those than anything else. And I believe I'm going to try the fermentation pickle process on those. I've never had them fermented. I've had them vinegar pickled and they're good. I want to do the fermentation because I started doing my cucumbers fermenting those pickles, and I like that way better than I do vinegar pickles. I pulled up my turnips and I never went back and thinned them. So mine were about this big around. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to feed them to the hogs. So I just fed them to the hogs this year. But I got a late start on planting them. And if I'd have planted them on time, I would have had some really nice turnips and I'd have probably canned quite a few. So next year I'm going to have to be on the ball and get my turnips in the ground by the end of August because I didn't get my turnips planted until toward the end of October. So the greens weren't even ready until the 1st of December. But if I get on the ball, I'll be like my dad because right after it cools off, he's already eating greens and cabbage and stuff like that because he gets it all in the ground at the end of August, 1st of September, right whenever temperature starts to go down. Once he feels that first cool snap come through, he's on it. It's in the ground. 4 foot by 4 foot, that ought to hold plenty of carrots. You ought to be able to can up a few of those. Which down here where I live, the Danvers half long is our primary carrot, and they don't get as big as store bought carrots. What you see in the store. When they say half long, they mean half long. It's half as long as what you get in the store, but they got a good taste to them. You just have to plant a few more to be able to have enough to put up, which you know most of us don't mind a little extra gardening. Yeah, I get really good results out of them. And if I take my time whenever I'm seeding them, I don't have to thin out near as many. But sometimes thinning out comes in handy because, hey, if you're cooking something and you need some carrots, and you want the baby size, perfect. Just go out there and just thin them out. But me being just by myself, it's not worth my time to do that because I'll have more baby carrots than I can eat, and they'll go bad. And but then again, I can always feed them to the pig or feed them to the goats, so they won't go to waste. But it's just extra work for me if I don't plant them, the right way, and I've got to do a lot of thinning. I've never eaten the carrot greens. Are they any good? Have you tried them? Now I know rutabaga greens. Most people don't eat those, but if you cook them long enough and slow enough, those are really good too. But I've never tried carrot greens. I might have to try that this year. Huh. I hadn't thought about putting them in a salad. Yeah, I could see where that would be pretty good. I'll try that this year. Which, if I hurry, I can get some butter crunch lettuce in the ground and still get a little bit of that growing before it gets too hot and they bolt. Which I should have already. Well, at the time it was time to plant the lettuce, I didn't have the money to get the seeds, so I didn't plant lettuce this year. Usually, I plant a little butter crunch and some red cell, and just maybe another salad mix or something like that. But I don't grow a whole lot of lettuce because, like I said, it's just me. And other than me, it becomes animal food, which hey, it's a win-win situation. It's going to be eaten by something, and eventually it'll be eaten by me, either through goat milk, goat meat, eggs, or chicken meat, or pork. One way or another, I'm going to be eating it sooner or later. That's one thing I've never done is I've never tried catching rainwater, and I need to because rainwater is so much better for your garden than water that you pump out the ground. There's a lot more nitrogen in rainwater because it absorbs it as it falls. So you get more nitrogen and oxygen and other minerals in your rainwater than you do out of well water. My mom and dad do not like kale, but I do. And I do grow kale and Swiss chard. I like that. And my mom and dad, they don't eat kohlrabi, but I like kohlrabi. It tastes a lot like turnips to me. I like growing that because it's a turnip above ground. You don't have the dirt to worry with or the roots to trim off. All you got to do is just peel that sucker up and put it in a pot and cook it, or either slice it thin and dip it in some ranch dressing. Hey, that stuff's great. Oh, you're doing a barrel planter. That'll make harvesting a whole lot easier. I usually use strawberries for ground cover. That way I don't have to plant so many plants and mulch it in. I just use ground cover. Try you some diatomaceous earth for the slugs. That works really good. Either that or the good old fashioned slug trap where you get you a pie pan and you put you a little bit of wine in it. Personally, beer and wine work okay, but what I found to be the best is to get you a packet of yeast and a can of juicy juice, grape juice, and just get you a pinch full of that yeast and put in there and leave it on the counter for a day or two. It works better than any other fermented drink that I've tried. And copper. There's something about copper. A snail will not go across copper. If it gets on copper, it'll kill it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the electrical charge that's just naturally in the copper. But if a slug crawls across a copper wire, that's a dead slug. Yeah, that's the bad thing about diatomaceous earth. Every time it rains, it's gone. I used to use boric acid because it's about the same as diatomaceous earth, but once it gets wet, it's gone. And it's pretty much non-toxic like organic pesticides, so that's why I use it. But if I ever get a bug problem in the house, I got a air mattress, air pump, and a water bottle that'll fit over that nozzle, and I drill some holes in the end of it, and I'll fill that thing up with boric acid, and I'll get out there in that crawl space, and it'll look like smoke billowing out all the crawl space holes, and then I don't have any more bug problems. Because as long as that boric acid stays on that wood, it works for termites, it works for cockroaches, it works for silverfish, any bug that crawls in your house, spiders, whatever crawls on that boric acid, and it'll stay there for years. Unless you just got a lot of moisture under your house and eventually it'll soak in and you'll have to redo it. But it works on any kind of bug. And you need to be selling into restaurants for escargot without the shell. A 6 to 8 inch long slug? Good Lord, I can only imagine how much he'd eat in a night. That sounds like bass bait to me. I wonder how good a fish bait a slug would be. That ought to be pretty good fish bait. You ought to try that out, and if it works, you got yourself a market for a moneymaker there, my friend. Just catch them bad boys up and sell them to the bait shop. Yeah, down here, if we get a half-inch long one, he's huge. We don't get big slugs down here in South Georgia. I agree with you. They are nasty. And that slime, it does not want to come off. That slime is something else. Then again, I can't really say anything because whenever I was a kid and it rained, we'd go out there and we'd grub for earthworms and we'd go fishing at the creek, and on the way home at night, we'd get ahead of the younger kids that were with us, and we'd take the leftover worms that we used for fish bait that we had, and we'd rub them all up and down our faces and our arms, and we'd glow green in the dark. And then we'd stop and we'd hide in the bushes, and when the youngers would come by, we'd step out and we'd be all glowing green and scare the crap out of them. But that's just as nasty as a slug. That and snipe hunting. We used to love to carry people snipe hunting. Man, that was something else. Get them out there with a bag and say, "All right, now you hold this bag open right here, this opening between these bushes, and I'm gonna go back there and you'll hear me beat around with a stick, and you'll hear me walk around for a little bit, and then I'll run him to you, and you catch him in the sack." And we'd walk around and then circle back to the car and haul ass and leave him out there all night long. By the time they get back to the house, they'd be mad as hell too. Then you ask them next weekend, "Hey, you want to go snipe hunting?" No. And I'm wondering, I forgot where my line of thought was going. Oh, I know about catching slugs, kombucha. I wonder how that would work as a bait. But then again, I saw something on TV about kombucha and the benefits, and it seems to be very beneficial for you. Unless you're prone to yeast infections, then you shouldn't be drinking it. But the SCOBY on top, everybody's talking about the SCOBY. They'll send you a piece of SCOBY, la di da di da. Well, it's just the yeast is floating. It's not must on the bottom, it's must on the top. And I'm thinking about getting whenever I find a store that's got kombucha, getting a bottle of it and finding some black tea and trying to make a little bit of my own. I'm curious about this stuff. I've never had it. I want to give it a try. But those big slugs, I would love to go to Danny and Wanda's, but I'm not going to be able to. Just can't afford it. But if at all possible, I'm going to try to make the HOA this fall, but I'll probably be tied up with peanut season. The people at the restaurant just going to have to deal with it. I'll take my 12 weeks of family leave and I'll go do peanuts for those 3 months and make some real money. But I'd love to go to that one. Actually, I'd rather go to Danny and Wanda's to tell you the truth because I like Danny and Wanda. But being at the HOA would be the best one as far as being out there and getting exposed and eventually becoming monetized. That's why I started these live streams because I've got another YouTube account that whenever I go to bed, I switch over to that one and I let it play all my live streams. And I've only got like 2 or 3 channels subscribed to it. So I get theirs, helping them out. And then I get a lot of mine and it gives me extra watch time. Because right now I'm almost borderline 100 hours. So if I want to get monetized anytime soon, I've got to get 3,900 more hours. VWs would be pretty cool. I think that really would, because I would like to see their place in person because it seems like they've got a pretty nice little setup there, and it all family owned, been in the family for a while, and that's historical to me. Yep, I had 124 subs yesterday morning. I'm down to 121, and I think part of it is because YouTube has decided some people aren't my subs that they must have thought it was sub for sub, but all the channels I keep up with, they still pop up on my feed. So I don't know what's going on. But I'll be on Two Family Homestead every Thursday afternoon, and probably every other week my channel gets pulled up, and I usually gain about 10 subs every time I go there. And on average, I get about 5 subs a week. So I'll get that 1,000 for, too long. Um, Homesteading the hard way. They don't have but 230 something subs, and they've already got their 4,000 hours because they're doing what I'm doing now. They did the live streams, started tuning in, and they're over 5,000 hours. But he's not planning on monetizing. He's just doing it for educational purposes because he's like me. He doesn't like seeing all these pretend homesteaders. I used to be mad at Pure Living for Life because what they said about people playing homestead. Well, they're right. People play homestead, and Pure Living for Life, they're playing homestead. Otherwise, they'd be finished building their house. 3 years ready to build a house? Come on. It don't take 3 years. And you'd pass those inspections the first time around if you actually went out and read the books on the stuff you need to do your electrical wiring, your plumbing, and all that other good stuff in your framing. You'd pass on the first try if you actually learned what you needed to know. Yep, they are milking every penny. Like out in the country, no, they're not on government assistance. They're on YouTube assistance. How can 36,000 people be so damn stupid as to subscribe to their? I subscribe to it for one thing only: comedy relief. They got a pony and a mule as their first two animals on their new homestead. So I made the comment that a pony and a mule equals a horse's ass. And that's what you guys are because you don't know what you're doing and you won't listen to anybody when they give you a comment that will actually save you time, money, and labor. Yeah, they jumped all down my throat whenever I gave them a friendly suggestion, not even in a mean way. And then whenever they jumped down my throat, the rest of their followers started doing it. It's like, hey, personally, I don't give a shit what you think about me or my channel. And I would prefer if you didn't sub to me because I don't want people like you watching my channel unless you want to learn how things are really done and what it really takes to run a farm and make a living off of it and support yourself. You're out there with your PayPal account for one reason only, not that you want anything other than cash. That's all you want. You want donations. I can understand some people's like mine. I don't have my PayPal account on there, but I do say I accept donations. But you got to contact me to ask me whether or not I'll accept it because I don't want your cash. But now, if you want to pay for me some fence posts at Tractor Supply, that's a different story. I'll take that. Yeah, you pay for them where I can go pick them up at my local Tractor Supply. Donation accepted. You want to give me $100 bill? I don't need your money. I can go and work for my money. It just the way I am. I ain't begging for nothing, but they're not they're not on government assistance. No, they're on public assistance from YouTube. Because I've watched them do a lot of mail call videos. Now, Bobblehead Homestead, that fella, I don't mind. He's got Parkinson's. So anything anybody does to help him out, I have no problem with. If they want to send him $1,000, I ain't got no problem with it. That man can use all the help he can get because he's got to prepare for his future. Because with Parkinson's, it's a devastating disease to begin with, and I'd like to see him have his place set up and ready to go for the day that he's not able to get out there and do everything he needs to do. So I ain't got no problem with people like him accepting donations. But when you got two people in their 20s that are able-bodied and they can get their ass out there and get a job and work for what they need, yeah, I got a problem with that. Oh, what's not like to like about Jeff. At first, he got on my nerves, but then I watched 2 or 3 more of his videos, and it's like the guy grows on you. I mean, I can't help it. I watch all of his videos when they come up. I mean, I'll make sure I give him that watch time. I'll even let the ads play through it, just to help him out with those few pennies YouTube gives him off the ads. I mean, you just can't help but like him. I mean, he's just such a likable guy. And I never subbed to the Rinses. Yeah, a lot of, and they know people donate on YouTube. That's why they're doing it. Me, I don't. Like I said, you want to donate something to me? Donate me some fence wire. Donate me some fence posts, some seed. Donate me an animal. Don't give me cash. If I need cash, I can go work for that. If I need cash, I can make something to sell. If I need cash, I got plenty of cast iron out there that needs to be reseasoned, and I've sold a bunch for way less than what it's worth, just because I wanted it to get back into use because it was already antique when I got it, and it was in good shape. It wasn't collector condition, so why would I charge 100 if it's worth $150? Why would I charge that for it? People around where I live can't afford that. So I would basically sell it to them for like $50. It's worth 150. You're getting it for 50. It's a win. And I'd even show them this is how much it's worth according to the book. And it's like $50 is what I can do for you because this is what I paid for it. And then I took my time and my know-how and my expertise and I made it look brand new so that you could use it. It's up to you. You want to buy it or not. If you don't, I'll carry it home. It's no loss to me. And sometimes I carried them home, but most of the time, the people would hem haul around and they'd try to Jew me down, and I might come down $5 or so on it. They'd go home with it. I last year before last, I brought in 3,000 in cash off cast iron pots and pans, and I didn't have $1,000 in what I invested in it, other than my time. And that includes the propane I use to season it with, the lye I use to strip it down with, and the battery chargers I use to take the rust off of it with. And that's all I cook in is cast iron, except for one aluminum pot that was my grandmother's. Other than that, all mine's cast iron. You've probably seen some of my videos with the wall full of cast iron. I've got about 20 more pieces outside I haven't even begun to start on yet. And I've got a great big shit bell that I've got to work on. I'm gonna put that in the yard. That's gonna be my doorbell. You pull up in the yard and I don't hear you, just ring the bell. Clang clang. I'm talking about a huge ship's bell, one yay big around, big old thing. Weighs about 80 pounds, solid cast iron. And then I've got several sad irons. And that's just something I can't bring myself to sell those. And they're worth like $25, $30 a piece. And I probably gave $5, $10 for them. And I've got 5 or 6 out there waiting to be finished. And I've had people offer me $50 for them. And it's like, no, I can't do it. I like those. Those are my favorites. Those and the pieces that's got the gate mark on the bottom where I know they're over 100 years old and you don't even know what company made them because the companies didn't put their names on them back then. They call them the Southern Mystery Skillet because you never know who made it. And those are some of the ones I don't get rid of them. I keep those. And actually, they wind up cooking better than the stuff made in the 40s and 50s. Because once they started getting that gritty bottom, that preseason stuff they started with in the late 60s to the mid 70s, I I don't like those. I will sell those cheap compared to everything else. But if it's got a smooth bottom on it, man, you can't beat it. But the stuff made back in the late 1800s is even way better. If you get one that's been taken care of and it's just got light surface rust on it, you can steel wool that thing down to a nice polished shine. You talk about smooth as glass, couple coats of lard on it, seasoned up. You could fry a block of cheese on that thing all day long, turn it upside down, and it just fall right off. Non-stick like nobody's business. Better than Teflon. And I won't even use Teflon anymore. I ain't. It might have been around long enough, but I don't think they've done enough health studies on that to reassure me. They say it's harmless to the human body, but I don't think so. They said the same thing about Roundup, but I use Roundup too, but I use it on my fence lines. I don't use it in my garden. I'm picky about what goes in my garden. Pesticides I use organic whenever the fruit's coming, but before the fruit, I'll use the non-organic. And if it says use 1 tablespoon, I drop back to a half a tablespoon, and it works just fine. I don't I don't go by label directions. I'll experiment until I get the strength that does the job, and that's as much as I'll use. And it's never what the label calls for. Never. And that's just a way for them to make money. They figure they get you to use it up faster that way by telling you you need 3 tablespoons to the gallon when really 1 tablespoon will get you by. But if you're using three, you're using it up 3 times as fast as what you need to, so you'll have to go back and buy more. I've got my playlist set up by month. Every video I make, I'll put it in a playlist for that month. And then I've gone back for the live streams and I've made a playlist just for the live streams. And I'm getting where so that I can keep them straight, I'm putting the date on there. That way I'll know which ones are which, and I can check and see where my alternate account needs to start watching. So that way my alternate account's not watching the same thing 3 and 4 times, and YouTube catch on to that, because that's an extra 5 hours of watch time a day if I play that playlist. And then after that playlist is over, then it goes to like Deep South Homestead, Lumna Acres, Living Traditions. I've got like 3, maybe 4 subscriptions on that one. My favorite ones that I watch the most are on that one. So that way they get some watch time too. And then it'll throw another one of my videos in the mix, and it'll get played again. And whenever I'm going during the day, I leave the computer on my alternate account. And then whenever I get back home, I'll reboot my computer and switch over to this account. And I'm starting to do a few playlists that are specific, like the potatoes and English peas. As I go along, not only will they be in the monthly playlist, they'll also be in the playlist for potatoes, the playlist for green peas. So I'll have multiple playlists, so that way people can pick out what they want. I didn't videotape or video myself doing my tomato seed the other night, but all these people buy these 6 packs and stuff like that, and all this other BS. Through the year, we always have church functions, and This is what they give you to drink out of. I bring it home. I drill a hole in the bottom. That's what I start my seed in. I'm not buying nothing special. I just don't see me doing it. My tea jar is empty. I shall return momentarily. So that I don't have to get up again, I just bring the whole jug. But now, since I'm doing this live stream thing, now if I can just get to the 1,000 subscribers, I figure I should hit 1,000 subscribers about the same time I hit 4,000 watch hours if things keep going the way they're going. Man, it's 11:30 and Stacy hasn't showed up. That's odd. I wonder what's up with her tonight. She's usually here every time I'm on. Yeah, I use a variety of containers, like glass jars you get pickles in and stuff like that. I save those. I mean, they come in handy for all kind of stuff. I mean, why let it go to a landfill? I can find a use for it here. In paper, it very seldom makes it to the trash can. I have stuff that I have to burn, and paper is a good fire starter, so I use it for that, or it gets composted and goes into the garden. So not much around my place is wasted at all. About the only thing that I throw away on a regular basis is plastic, and I prefer to have my Coke out of a can than a plastic bottle because I can recycle the aluminum. I try to avoid plastic as much as possible, and I'm waiting on the day for them to get rid of these damn plastic bags that they give you at the grocery store. I miss paper bags, and anytime I've got the option, if I see paper bags, I want mine in paper bags, please, because paper black bags come in handy for so many things. I mean, and they're pretty much sterile. Like the inside of a newspaper is pretty much sterile, So when I was younger, we would use it for stuff like fish fries. Put the cornmeal in the grocery bag, throw your fish in there, shake it around. Your fish are coated, and the fins didn't tear up the bag. You do that with a Walmart bag, yeah, you're going to have to use about 3 bags because those fish fins are going straight through it. Plastic cardboard to separate parts. You must be talking about little projects that you do around the house, which is a matter of fact, at work, we go through so many boxes. I'm fixing to start breaking down the boxes and throwing them in the trunk of my car and bringing them home and laying those around and covering them up with mulch because they make such a great weed barrier that you don't have to worry about mulching but one time a year. And then after a month or so of them being rained on and wet, if you want to put a new plant down in that area, you just move the mulch away. The cardboard is pretty much broke down. You just dig your hole, plant your plant, and go on about your business. Just rake the mulch back up. No weed problem at all. Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about now. But yeah, I'm gonna start bringing home a lot of cardboard boxes and start laying them out in other areas of the yard where I want to put little small garden plots. You know, like for my Cherokee purple tomatoes, have them in one area by themselves, so I don't have to worry about cross pollination. My Cherokee tan pumpkins in an area by themselves where I don't have to worry about cross pollination and stuff like that. You know, and if I start laying down that cardboard now, it'll have the grass killed with a little thin layer of mulch put over the top of it to hold the cardboard down. And then I don't have to worry about using black plastic to kill it with, because once you're done with the black plastic, then you've got the plastic to deal with. Something you got to throw away in the landfill. And why would I do that whenever all I got to do is just take a piece of cardboard and lay it down and cover it up? Biological footprint is cut down dramatically. I don't even bother shredding it. I just layer it and then throw some. Every once in a while, I'll go buy a, a cup of worms. That's the appropriate word for it. They come in the little blue cups. Throw some dirt in there on top of it and just let the worms have at it. Because after that cardboard gets wet and the worms get to it, it don't take the worms long to figure out, hey, that stuff is good. That's all right. I need to get to bed myself because I need to get up early in the morning and get my errands run so that way I can have everything laid out and ready by around 2 or 3 to get started on moving that chicken run over. And that way they're not ranging through my garden all afternoon. Maybe if I get out there and sprinkle some corn in the furthest reaches of the yard, they won't be able to get to the garden because they'll be too interested in finding the corn. They haven't had corn in a while. So I need to get some sleep myself. But it's been good talking to you, and I'll probably be on tomorrow night. Not for sure, but more than likely I will, because I got to get monetized somehow if I ever want to buy that hamburger at work. Because Lord knows it's going to take forever to get YouTube monetized for me, because I'm just slow at it. All right, Jim, buddy, you have a good one. I'm gonna hang out a few more minutes, see if Stacy shows up, because she usually does show up whenever I'm on. She might have something going on tonight. I appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot. I'll go back through your channel and I'll put you on a few auto plays. We'll figure out how to screw YouTube out of their money. I'm sure Wrangler Star did, and I can't stand him. He's as fake as the day is long. He might be smart, but he's fake. And he's got fake hair too, that toupee of his. But anyway, man, you have a good night. Well, you need to start putting up some videos, man. Get yourself monetized. Make some money off having fun on YouTube. But yeah, I appreciate you putting me on autoplay. That really helps out a whole lot. And if you can con somebody into watching my boring behind sit and talk, get them to sub me. I'll appreciate any sub I can get. But you have a good one, man, and get enough rest so that way you ain't going to get yourself hurt or injured on the job tomorrow. And we'll talk to you later. I might be on tomorrow night. More than likely, I will, because if I've got any classwork I need to do, I will probably do it in the afternoon. as I eat supper. So I'll probably see you tomorrow night. If not, I know I'll see you again this week because I know I'll be doing another live stream at least once or twice. But you have a good one, buddy. Hello. Who have we got with us? Ah, it's Jim again. Jim, is that really you or am I on autoplay?